Welcome back. In this video, we're going to focus on planes, working planes. And right here, so first of all, let's talk about what is a working plane. Well, we are familiar with the planes right here that we draw on, and really that's what planes are for, or sketching on. Putting your sketch onto them. They can be adjusted to proper distances from different objects, and they are very handy. So let's make this plane right here, this XZ plane, visible. And I right-clicked on it and I left-click on visibility. So there's our first plane that is built in to Inventor. All right. Let's go through all the different kinds of planes. We will start with offset from plane. And what that means is, when I click on it, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I can choose a plane, like this one right here, and click on it. And now I can put another plane in offset from the one I clicked on. So I can just use this arrow and push it up, or I can give it a certain measurement, like say 200 millimeters, which is way up there, and I'll green check it, and I'm going to zoom back out, and you will see a plane way up here 200 millimeters above the build plate. Why would we do something like that? Well, in case we wanted to draw something on it, we could certainly do that. But that shows you. And I can add another plane too. I can go offset from plane again, and I can choose our build plate plane. I can go up maybe 20 this time, and I'll just hit enter. It's the same thing as hitting the check mark, and there, now I have another plane that's 20 millimeters above the first one. Alright, another thing you can do, and to get rid of the planes, you just put your mouse on it, right click on it, say delete, and you've gotten rid of it, and it'll disappear from here. I can put a plane on a plane. So I started the original one from this build plate plane that's built in, the XZ plane. Can I add a plane on top of one that I added? Why not? So right there, I can add a plane to, let's make that 15 millimeters. So now I've added a work plane on top of a work plane. And if I go over to my tree over here, I can see that I have embedded the XZ plane, which is work plane 41, which comes right above it, and then outside of that, work plane 42. You can see them highlighting as I touch them with the mouse. There's our original one. There's our first one we put in. Here's our second one. Now the interesting thing is I put this plane in, it is offset a certain distance from our original XZ plane, but this plane right here is offset from the first one. Our second one is a distance from the first one. Why I'm bringing this up, if I change the distance, say edit dimension, okay, and I change that 20 millimeters to something like 40 millimeters, what happens to the plane that I put in there after? The second one. That one remains the same distance, the same 15 millimeters that it was when I put in this plane. It is 15 millimeters from work plane 41. This is work plane 42. So that will, no matter what I change this plane and this plane distance, these two will maintain the same thing. Alright, so what if I delete both of these? Yes, I will get rid of the dependent, which was the one, the plane above it. You cannot delete this plane, by the way. So let's do this another way. I will say offset from plane. I will take from there, and I will type in 20 millimeters. All right. I'll add a second one, offset from plane, and I'll go back from the original, not from the new one I put in, but from the original build plate, XZ plane. Click on it, and I'll make this one 50 millimeters. Okay? Because they both reference the original plane here, you'll notice that they have two separate objects now. Two entries in the tree. They both originate from the XZ plane independently. So if I go to this plane right here and I edit its dimension, and from 20 I'll change it to 40, what happens to the second one? That one did not move. This plane just got closer to it because this plane originated from the XZ plane and this plane originated from the XZ plane. So had this plane come from this plane, they would have moved in unison. They would still be the same distance apart. I believe it would be 20 millimeters. But since they are independent of each other, moving this one does not change this one. And I wanted to show you that nuance because that's important when you start making modifications to this, how you have structured these. Alright, so that's that first plane. Now let's go ahead and get rid of them. Just right click on it, say delete. Right click on that one, say delete. Okay, we're back to our original XZ plane, which is our pretty much our build plate. Okay, let's throw a couple objects on this plane. Let's throw a cube and let's throw a cylinder. So I will throw a circle here, and we'll make that circle 10 millimeters. Sure. Let's make it 15. So it's bigger. And let's throw a rectangle on here. Somewhere around, well, probably down here would be great. And we'll make it a rectangle. And notice this plane, this XZ plane, once I drew this, you notice I drew that in the open blue area, not on touching the plane, but the plane adjusted itself once I clicked to set that in place. Just so you know, that's what it's doing. And of course, I forgot to rotate this way. So this is how we're going to work on it from here on, with top oriented upwards. We'll finish our sketch. Now, let's hit extrude. And I want to extrude that circle. And I want to make it 40 millimeters tall. Okay, so that's 40 millimeters tall. And then I want to extrude my square, which I cannot see, but that's okay. Whenever that happens, just go over back to your model tree, find that sketch, right click on it, and tell it visibility checked on. Now I see it, and now when I hit extrude, I can choose it. Now I want to make that height 30 millimeters. I want it to be just a little shorter, so that they are different heights. That's what I'm looking for. So now that they are different heights, and we have a couple objects on here, a round one and a squarish rectangle shaped one, let's look at some different planes we can have. This one is called parallel to plane through point. Alright, so what is that? Well, let's say if I was just putting an offset from plane. Now here's the other thing you need to know. These are planes, right? Drawing surfaces that are built in. Oddly enough, that is a plane. Even though it comes from a shape, it's a flat surfaced area, that's a plane. That's a plane. Okay? The top of that rectangle is a plane. The face of it is a plane. The side of it is a plane. Why, even the bottoms are planes. Okay? Anything I can put my mouse on like that and highlight it is basically a plane. What's not a plane is the cylinder, this round shape. But never fear, there are plane commands that can work with that, and we will go over them. It's natural for planes to be rectangular type or squarish type flat surfaces. So naturally anything that is a flat surface like that can be considered a plane. So if I wanted to draw a plane right across the top of this, I could certainly do that. There's a couple ways I can do it. Actually, I can do it this way, offset from plane. I click on it and just leave it at 0. That's one way. I'm going to do Control Z to nullify it. I can do offset to plane through point, which is interesting. What is that? Parallel to plane through point. Parallel to plane through point. So I can choose this surface right here, and if I find myself a little point, see what that does? What if I chose a point down here? So whatever point I choose, it's going to draw a plane. It's not letting me choose a flat surface, it's letting me choose a point. What if I chose the dead center? So here's what this will do. Parallel, which means running parallel across that direction, from across that. In fact, let's straighten it up so you can see it. Parallel means straight across to that. We'll tip it our way just a touch. And then through a point. So where do we want to draw this flat surface? Do we want it up here, or do we want it down here? And that's what I just clicked on. I clicked on a point and it gave me that. So what's significant about that when I could have simply just an offset from plane and said 0? Well, here's an interesting thing. I can sketch up. If I go into this plane right here and I go into sketch and I choose this plane right there to sketch on, there's something here called a point. I can throw a point here, and I can throw it here, and how about there, and out here in the blue, and out here in the blue, and see that my plane comes out to meet it and surround it as I put them in. Now we're going to finish that. So I have a bunch of points thanks to the point command in my 2D sketch. And I want to put a plane parallel to some surface through a point. Well, how about we do this? Parallel plane through point. Parallel through that one so it goes up and down. That's all that's going to do for me is just make this go up and down. And then I'm going to choose one of these points I just drew. There's one there. There's one there. 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 Even there. So wherever I have a point, like say there or right there would be a good one, it will be parallel to the surface I chose. Basically, it will match the direction of the surface I chose and go through a point of my choosing. Any of these points. I could do another one if I wanted. Offset, parallel to plane through point. Let's choose our surface this time. Let's choose this direction. And let's choose a point like that. See how the direction that I choose first determines how it's going to go through these points? Now, if I remember right, we chose this point here first. Now I'm choosing that direction and that point again. I have now made a plane that has 90-degree intersections. These are drawing surfaces. I can draw stuff on them now, if I wanted to. Okay? That's parallel through point. Parallel through surface, so what is that called? Parallel to plane through point. Chose a plane, chose a point. Okay, that's what that is. Let's Control Z our way back out of this. Clear this up a bit. Oh, we've done some work. Get out rid of those planes, points. There, now we're back to try something next. mid-plane between two planes. This is handy. Mid-plane. So if I want to draw a plane right down the center or something, all I need are two planes, an inner and an outer, and it will put a plane in the middle. So let's do that. Let's choose this rectangle here. And I'm going to choose this as my starting side. I'm going to rotate around and choose this as my outer side. And if I look, it just drew a plane right down the middle. Perfect. So that is centered. I didn't even have to measure it. It just did it. Okay, so Control Z to get rid of it. What other ways can we do this? This would be mid-plane between two planes. Well, what about the cylinder? Here's a start, and here's a finish. And look, we just bisected that cylinder. That plane runs parallel through, mid-plane between that plane and that plane, that plane. The bottom and the top. It is down the middle. Control Z. Let's do one more interesting thing. Now watch this one. Mid-plane between two planes. Do the planes have to be on the same object? Okay, I'm going to do the bottom of the circle. And I'm going to do the top of this rectangle. No, they don't. That is the middle, basically the middle of this rectangle, because that bottom is the same. Which makes me think. Let's try something more interesting. Let's say mid-plane between two planes, and I think you know where I'm going with this. Top of this cylinder and the top of this one. Look at that. That is a plane that is equidistant between the top of the cylinder and the top of the square. That is cool. So let's undo that. So I just wanted to show you, it doesn't have to be the top and bottom of anything. It can be any plane. That's a plane, that's a plane. And that's a plane, and now that's a plane. Which, to really beat this to death, one more example. Mid-plane between two planes. What if I wanted to put a plane between this one, which is a plane, and this one, which is definitely a plane? Look at that. Perfect. Okay, Control Z our way out of that. And let's go look at the next one. Midpoint of torus. Well, in order to do a midplane of torus, we're going to need a torus. What is a torus? Let's draw one. I think I'm going to do something fancy here. I'm going to put a plane right across the top of that. And maybe we'll jack it up about 5 millimeters. Why not? Just so we have something there. And I'm going to draw on it. A 2D sketch right on the top of it. Okay? Which means I don't have to draw on top of it. That's just showing me that's the plane that I'm drawing on the level of. Okay? And of course, I do like to remember to rotate this the right way. Okay. So, there we have it. We're going to draw on the top of this plane right here somewhere. I'm going to choose out here. What is a torus? Well, a torus is pretty much a donut. Let's draw one. I don't think we've covered the revolve command quite yet, but now's the time to do that. So we will cover it briefly, and then we'll cover it in more detail later. Just to introduce you to it. So we're going to sketch on this work plane here. I'm going to shove it over. And in order to draw a donut, a torus has to be a round circle. Pretty much. I played around with it and discovered I couldn't use an oval. This makes me really think I can't use a square. Although I could try it later and see, but let's make this 20 millimeters. And let's zoom out so we can see it. There it is. Let's just kind of bring it a little, well, okay. Get out of dimension with escape. I want to move it over a little bit. A little closer. but not lined up with anything because I have plans for this thing. In order to do a donut, you need a circle, or a torus, which is basically a donut. You need a circle and a line. And what the line is something to rotate around. And escape. And notice I'm just putting just a little stick there. I'm not making a big long one. I don't need to. This thing will reference to it just fine. So finish our sketch. Important to do. And I'm going to zoom out just a little because I'm going to hit the revolve command. And the profile, just like everything, a profile is basically an enclosed shape. An axis is something to spin around, which is, well, if I click on it and I choose this little stick I have, and I'm just going to rotate this over a little bit, you can see I have drawn a donut. Okay, so we have a donut. Now what's also kind of cool about this is there's different ways to draw this donut. And this option right here with the two arrows, I can make it not quite enclosed. I don't have to go all 360 degrees if I don't want to. And I'll show you the significance of that a little later. Okay. So we have our donut with a bite taken out of it. Now let's do something with it. The plane that I want to show you is midplane of torus. So if I click on that, of course my mouse is right in the neighborhood, nothing else is a torus. You notice I'm moving the mouse around and it doesn't identify anything. But if I click on this right here and rotate it around, you can see that it has drawn a plane right down the middle of the torus. Okay, or my donut. There's no jelly on it, but that's alright. No chocolate either. But that's a torus. A torus is usually all the way 360 degrees. I chose to make mine shorter than that because I have some ideas. I want to show you about other commands that involve planes, and these can be used as planes. Okay, so that is drawing a midplane through a torus. Now, this one is such a popular one. Of course, I can't seem to get my mouse to clear. There we go. This one's so popular, it actually has its own box for it. Angle to plane around edge. It creates an angled work plane around a face or edge. This one allows you to set degrees. So you can pick an edge and then pick the angle to it, and there you have it. This is neat. Alright, and a very popular one. That's why it's on its own thing. So we'll click and choose it. So let's go find us an edge. How about this edge right here? We'll click on that edge, and then we'll find a face to start off, you know, which way it's going to go, which way it's going to face. Apparently it wants to be perpendicular to whatever face we choose. This is interesting because I can choose I can choose that plane or the bottom plane here. No, I can't. Okay, so we'll just choose one of these. I'll choose that one right there. And now I can change the angle of it. I can change the angle. Let's say I want to make it 45 degrees. Let's say I want to make it 45 degrees plus 90 degrees. How about that? I can do math in it. Let's make it 22.5 degrees plus another 13 degrees. Odd, but possible. See that? So that's what this allows you to do. I'm going to exit and cancel it. So one more time, well, maybe a couple more times, because this is a very popular command. In order to use it, you pick well, I can even pick a plane if I wanted to, but it's really for picking an edge. Like say I want to make an angle off of this one. So I pick that edge, And then I pick a face that I want to be perpendicular to, like say that one there, or that one, or how about that one? Okay. And now, this is the new plane I'm getting. I can change it and make it go like that. Okay. So I can set the number of degrees, like say if I want it to be a 45-degree angle. There we have it, 45-degree angle from that to there. Okay. Very popular command. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Kind of rotate it to the front, so we're looking straight at it. Tip up a little bit so it's 3D. Okay, so what's our next one? 3 points. Make a plane go through 3 points. Let's do that. Let's choose 3 points somewhere. Well, a point can be a corner, or a point can be a point that you put on a plane or an object. Remember, planes can be flat surfaces too. So we are in the 3-point command. For instance, here's a point. There's 1. Over here is number 2. And this opposing corner, let's make that number 3. And look at that. It drew a plane on a 45-degree angle from those 2 down through this one. You don't need 4 points because 3 is enough to establish that angle. But that's pretty neat. Okay, so Control Z to get rid of it. Let's do another one. Let's alright. Let's throw some points up here. Okay, so we'll add some points. Let's start a 2D sketch. Let's sketch on this new plane we created. Bring it back down, and we'll use the point command to add some points. We'll throw one there and there. Just throwing one way out here on space, one out this way, and one below everything. Okay, that should be a random sample. We'll OK that, which will finish the sketch. Now, one thing, keep in mind, all these points I just added are on that plane right there. You can see they all line right up to it. But the neat thing about points is that points are defined like I just did here, like that one and that one and that one. They also can be like the end of lines or end of planes, like that one. I'll zoom in, like that right there. The little yellow dot I just showed up, and that one right there. Those count as points too. So let's make our plane that go through 3 dots. The 3 points plane. So we'll choose a point there, and let's choose a point there, and just to be really fancy, let's choose a point down here. And look what that did. By using 3 points, I can draw a plane through those 3 points. And that's a very fancy one. Okay, you can see the point in that corner, the point on that corner, I think that's the one I chose, and the point right there. Alright, Control Z to get out of that. And likewise, the 3 points command, I can choose a point here, and let's say I choose a point way over here, and I choose a point way over here. Okay, it did it. Alright, and then the last one, Control Z, something very simple. We'll do the 3 points. We'll just say that one, and that one. And what that did, if you'll notice, it just drew a plane right on top of the existing plane because those 3 points were on the existing plane. kind of an exercise in futility, but it does work. It will let you do that. There's no need to do that, but it did let us. So, great. Okay, that's the 3 points plane. Now, the next one, coplanar edges. Creates a work plane through two coplanar work axes, edges, or lines. Alright, let's click on that and let's go find a couple edges. So, here we go. Let's find, we'll zoom in. Here's an edge, and here's an edge. Look at that. We could do it, of course, that's a very simple example, because that edge and that edge, we could easily do this with a simpler plane, but Control Z. What if we were to do that coplanar edge? You notice it's got like an angle to it. Well, what is that suggesting? Well, what if we did this edge, spun it around, then we got this top edge chosen. Let's go for this bottom edge right here. Why, sure. There it goes. It's bisecting it. Okay, so two opposite edges like that. Control Z for undo. Let's try that one again. Let's see if we can do two edges somewhere totally else. Well, of course we can do like from this bottom here, and we can choose this edge here or this one. But notice we can't choose this one because that would not allow it to go through anything. That's just too far off in left field. But it does seem to allow me to choose other kinds of edges. So we'll do that in a minute. We'll choose that one, so now we get the opposite going the other way, bisecting it. Control Z. What if I were to go to this? Yeah, let's do this. Let's see if we can draw another rectangle somewhere that has edges and draw through them. How about that idea? So we'll go to sketch. We'll sketch on that work plane again. Put ourselves a little rectangle out here this time. And finish the sketch. And just because we're going to be fancy, we'll extrude it the other way. That way. 30 millimeters sounds like a win. So now we have two rectangles. And let's go back to two coplanar edges. I think I can choose this edge and I can choose this edge. And that would be a handy thing to do. See how that worked? There were two edges from different objects. Control Z to undo. And let's beat this to death one more time. Two coplanar edges. I'll choose that top edge there, and I'll choose that bottom edge there. How about that? Okay. It doesn't really matter where those edges are as long as they're coplanar, which means they kind of go in the same direction. And those did. That one and that one kind of line up. I guess it was that one. Nope, it was the top one. Okay. Control Z. That should be enough of that one for an example. Tangent to surface through an edge. I notice we're getting into round objects now. Tangent to surface through edge. Tangent, of course, means it's a opposite of parallel. Well, not maybe opposite, but parallel means lined up. Tangent usually means on a right angle. So let's try that. Tangent through. Alright, so we'll pick a cylinder surface. Okay, and we want to run a plane through that. But look what this allows us to do. If I choose then an edge, like there, let's tip it up higher so you can see what's going on. If I chose that edge, that is tangent to the face of the cylinder through that edge, or that edge, or that edge, or that edge. Okay, or we'll go with that edge right there. So now that is touching the edge of the cylinder, using the edge of the rectangle as the reference for where it should pass across. Kinda cool. Control Z. What if I did that command, tangent through surface of an edge, and I chose that cylinder there, and I chose that y-axis? There you go. Right through the y-axis. That is very handy. Okay, Control Z to undo. So that's what that does. And for the purposes of this video, there are two that we are not going to cover because I believe they are beyond the scope of our project. Tangent to surface through point, it's for part files only, and normal to curve at point is also for part files only, and we don't seem to be compatible with them, so I will not try them in front of you. But we will go to tangent to surface and parallel to plane next. That would be this one right there. So let's go play with that. Alright, we'll minimize this. Send this up kind of in the middle. And we will start with what in the world is tangent to surface and parallel to plane. Well, let's pick a round surface because it's really what this is for. Now I'm going to click on this side of the cylinder, and then I'm going to find a flat surface to use as a reference. I'm going to click on that flat surface right there, and I'm going to tip it up, and you can see what it did is it drew a plane right across the back side of the cylinder. Okay, interesting. So we'll Control Z to undo that. Let's run that command again. Plane, tangent to surface and parallel to plane. We'll click on the front of that cylinder. We'll pick this flat surface this time. And now it is touching the cylinder parallel to that flat surface right there. What if I ran that command again, tangent to surface and parallel to plane, and I was on this side of the cylinder, and I went to this side of the rectangle, or this one. Here's the interesting thing, is if I chose this side of the rectangle, I am getting it on this side of the cylinder. I'm going to rotate this up so it's easier to see. See that? Same thing with this one. Even though it is behind the cylinder, whoops, it slipped over, my mouse moved. Even though it is behind the cylinder, oh, I see what it's doing, it's giving me a face thing. Behind the cylinder, it is going to put it in front of it. Now what if I switched to the side? Well, now it is in front there. So it's in front to the side. What if I rotated to the back? It's still in front. So you should know about that. Where you click on this cylinder can determine where it is going to draw that plane. So we'll put it right there. Okay? So I would advise you in using this command to be aware that when you run this command that you turn that cylinder to the side you want the plane to touch, and when you click on it, then just grab any surface that happens to match it without spinning it around. And that did not work. Normally it does. That's weird. That one and there. Here, now it did. So that's interesting. I have two work planes, one on top of the other. I'm going to delete my second one. So that's odd, it can happen, but I have noticed for the most part that the side of the cylinder that you're clicking on, and then whatever surface you choose, kind of determines what side of the cylinder it's going to appear on. And even though you can click on surfaces that are in front or behind a plane like this one, it will still appear on that side of the cylinder. So just be aware of that. It may not always go where you anticipate it to, and you can kind of control it for the most part by clicking on the side of the cylinder first that you want it to appear on. Okay, so that takes care of that one. So let's get rid of our planes that we created. I'll just delete them this way rather than Control-Z to undo them. Okay, last one. And this one involves points. So let's take a look at the last one. Normal to axis through point. I kind of think they should have renamed this one. I think the better name would have been normal to axis perpendicular to point. I know I have a habit of calling parallel and perpendicular opposites, but I'm going to try and keep that straight in this. Axis perpendicular to the point, and let me show you why I think that. I'll click on it, and now that we've got it clicked, let's choose a point right there. There's a point we have it selected. Now let's choose an axis. An axis can be an axis like the y-axis or the z-axis, or it can be an edge. But notice each time I choose one, like say I choose the y-axis, which goes up and down, it is drawing a left and right surface, a left and right plane, side to side. Same thing here, if I choose an axis that goes side to side, it is attempting to draw a work plane that is vertical, up and down. Opposite, that would be perpendicular. And of course, like this one, if I choose this side right here, this edge right here, it's still going vertical and at 90-degree angles all the way. So that's interesting. So let's just choose one. We'll choose the top edge here, and that has drawn a plane through that point that we had. Let's run that command again. Normal to axis through point. Grab that point again. This time we'll choose a different edge. How about that one? Let's do it again. Normal to axis through point. Let's grab, let's say this axis. Well, we have two already. Can we get a third one? I think if we had one that ran this way, and we do not. 1, 2, 3. Nope, we have all of them covered. They're all covered. Okay. So I escape, get out of it. But to show you some more, I can grab any of these points. Like say, I grab this one down here. And I grab an edge. Perfect. Run that command again. Grab the other edge. Oh, first you have to pick the point. Then you can grab an edge, like that one. Alright. Wait a minute. What about a point that's not something I placed on the screen? What if I have a point like the end of, like, say, a rectangle? Like that one. Right there in yellow. Well, let's do it right here. Okay. Now that I have it chosen, now I need to choose an axis. 1, 2, 3. So I'll choose that axis. Run the command again. Choose that point. I'll run that axis. Run the command again, choose that point, and I'll run that axis. There, we've just got our divide that looks like its own looks like its own coordinate system. Very interesting. Very cool. So I was able to do that with this because it was on a shape. I ran that 3 different directions. So that pretty much explains the planes that you're going to use in this. And again, planes are drawing surfaces. They allow you to sketch on things. They also allow you to do more than that too, but sketching is the biggest activity on them. But you can run some of these other commands off of them. They make great references. So there you have it, and good luck.